Hey everyone, welcome to NeuroDomvergent. I'm Jen.
And I'm Nina.
This is my mom and my co-host of the podcast if you are new here. And we are so excited that we have continued on this journey of doing a podcast together. Every week it just feels crazier that we're on a higher number. Now we're on episode 9 weeks into the podcast, and we feel like we just still have so much more to share. So that's why we just continue to, record for you guys and share our family story with my brother Dom. And so today we have a really good topic that is going to be focused on the transition from childhood into adulthood with someone who has a disability. And so my mom, has gone through this process already and is, obviously still continuing to learn because he is only 21 right now. And I'm sure it's going to be a lifelong journey of learning, the process of transitioning into all of these things we're going to talk about today. But I think there are some really big points related to, financial understanding of how there's a shift, guardianship, Social Security, Medicaid, long-term care. I mean, there's so many things that you don't really think about when your child is really young with a disability. You're trying to focus on all those barriers and challenges that might be faced along your journey when they are a young child. But then when they move into adulthood, it's like a whole new world, right, Mom?
It is.
So,
it really is.
Yeah. So do you want to kind of talk about, I think the first thing we were going to mention is just that legal and financial planning. That's really important once they turn 18.
Yeah. And you think, if your child may only be, 1, 2, 3, I mean, the years go by so fast, and before you know it, they're going to be 17 years old, almost turning an adult, and you're like, oh gosh, what do I do? And so you just want to be, prepared ahead of time, because there is quite a checklist to go through, things, documents that need to be changed, once they turn over to adulthood. And I just think it's really important to just be ahead of the game. So I think the really number one most important is the guardianship or the power of attorney over your child, because legally, when a child turns 18, they have the capability to make decisions on their own, living arrangements, financial decisions, and a lot of children that have disabilities are, once they turn 18, are unable to make those decisions on their own. So you have to appoint somebody to become their guardianship to make those financial decisions for them. So the two most popular options, obviously, are guardianship and power of attorney. So I think Jen is going to link a website to kind of describe the difference between the two. And, I think the guardianship involves the court system, where the other is just getting legal documentation from an attorney and getting it notarized and just having full general durable power of attorney over your child. So I think that's really the number one thing that you're going to want to do, and get in process before your child turns 18.
How old was Dominic when you guys started that?
I mean, I started bringing it up in my IEP meetings probably when he was like I said, 16, 17, and the schools, will work with you. They gave me like a checklist of things that I wanted to get in order, before he turned 18. So once that birth date comes, that you're like all set, and it's just a matter of moving forward. You don't want to wait till he turns 18 and then do it, because I'm telling you, things will change over right on that birth date. So I remember, bringing up in IEP meetings, at least 2 years before he turned 18. So.
Wow. I think it's great that the school helps out with that process.
They will. At least our school did. They were really, really good. Like I said, they gave us a bunch of documentations. I know, getting a state ID for our son. You go to Secretary of State, and it's just a great process. I don't know. The people just were so great to him. He had to get his picture taken, and when you get it, it actually looks like a driver's license, but it's a state ID. So So it's just nice for them to have, if you want to open a bank account, if he wants to be a registered voter, you'll need that state ID. And it's just, we take Dominic certain places and, we just say, okay, Dominic, you got to show your ID, and we'll hand him his card and he has to hand it to the security guard. It's just, I don't know. I just think it's a good thing to have. I know some people don't do that process, but we did. And I'm like really glad we have it.
Well, and it gives him a sense of individuality.
Yes.
Like this, he's able to recognize and show people, like, I feel like that could be really difficult for anyone with, different disabilities, where you are under the care of your parents, but you're your own person. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so for him, it gives him the chance to kind of have that sense of himself.
Right. Right. I mean, even though that, you have the legal and financial, decision making for him, it still gives him his, his independence and, just self-worth. That, hey, I'm a person, here's my ID, and some of that is needed, like I said, for opening certain bank accounts and things like that. So you're going to want to have that.
All right. So so that's the main focus, is power of attorney versus guardianship. Like my mom said, it's really complex, and it really goes off the needs of your child. So that's why we don't want to spend too much time on that, because everyone is different and they might need different resources or different avenues that work best for them. So like I said, I'll link the website below so you guys can, I think there's a video that ties along with it, and it just really explains in depth of how to make that decision. But I think early planning essentially is
Definitely.
the biggest thing that you need to be aware of. Is you can't wait last minute. Oh, they're about to turn 18. Like my mom said, when they're 16, I think even 15, 16.
Yes, I would start bringing you up to, your IEP support team, or if you're working with the ARC or MORC or anything like that. There's so many resources and supports out there to guide you through the steps that need to be taken once they turn 18.
Yeah. So another major kind of point of topic is Social Security and Medicaid. So do you want to kind of talk a little bit about, was it the same process that you had to do this all, when he was maybe 15, 16, talking about Social Security income and Medicaid? How did that work?
Well, if the child is unable to work and earn income, Social Security benefits will supplement him or her. So they'll get I'm not too sure how the amount, I'm not, the application process, but they will be eligible to receive Social Security at 18 because of the financial burden. I mean, that they can't, have self-employment. So it's like a supplemental income that they will receive once he turns 18.
Yeah.
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 I'm sure there was an application. I know, I apologize. We got to have Dad on here because he was kind of the maker of all that. And I don't have a lot of knowledge on it. I just know that he was eligible to receive the supplemental income because he is unable to, make money, on his own, which a lot of typical developing children at 18, they can support, they can get a job and whatnot. And, kids with this cognitive impairment are unable to. So the government gives you the supplemental income.
Yeah. No, I think you summarized that right. And I mean, we're not major experts on everything. And I think that's part of being I say we're a special family because we have, my brother, and obviously my mom's son is special, and there are so many things that you continue to learn. It just goes to show that, when you do give birth to someone that's different and has these differences and needs different care and has different needs even into adulthood. Obviously with my sister and I, we followed the path of going to college and building up ourselves that way. And then with Dominic, it's like a whole different world. It's a whole different path. And I give my parents a lot of credit for taking that time to really understand like how to go about it. And it's really confusing. It sounds like there's so much information. Like we were trying to find like a checklist of everything to talk about today, but there's so much. Like
It
it's
is.
crazy to think about how much work and diligence and advocacy that one person or a family needs to have to ensure that their child gets these services or gets the right care and gets the right, social security and Medicaid. And like, I don't know how you guys keep up with it all.
I know. Well, like I said, just there is a lot of support out there when are on different teams. And it does seem like it's very confusing. I remember I was very, confused and overwhelmed. But once the process gets started and you get documents on the actions that have to be taken, it all works out. It's not as confusing as it may sound, but
So you felt supported.
definitely had a lot of support, a lot of help out there. There's just a lot of resources, with that process. So,
Yeah. Well, that's good. I think I'm coming from like more of like the outside perspective of I haven't, I know about it. I know what they've done, but I wasn't sitting with them doing it.
yeah.
So it sounds really complex, but that's good to know that there's the resources and support out there that are willing to help and did help with you guys.
Yes.
And like, so I think the thing about Medicaid, that I was learning about is that Medicaid is really is that like this is my question. Is it separate than insurance coverage or is it like in addition to?
It's in addition to. So, like with our personal experience, Dominic is on my husband's health insurance, and that is his primary insurance, and Medicaid kicks in as his secondary insurance. So it's just a secondary insurance. A lot of times when you go to a doctor's office and you fill out the insurance part and it'll say, primary, secondary, and if you don't, you cross it out. Well, Dominic, he has that secondary insurance, which is Medicaid. But they go to the primary, and then whatever the primary insurance doesn't cover, then Medicaid will usually pick up in most cases. I mean, that's how the experience that we've had.
And then when dad retires, he'll be strictly on Medicaid.
Yeah. Well, it just depends on how dad sets him up. Like I think he can still stay on dad's insurance until a certain point.
Okay.
And then until then he'll be on, Medicaid.
The Medicaid coverage.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's why when we talk about, I remember I think I mentioned this in another podcast, but I went to this disability convention in Washington, D.C., and this was one of the main areas that we were really advocating for in the White House was like we met with representatives and we talked about why it's so important to keep the coverage for Medicaid because it's families like us that are the ones that really need to ensure that he's going to have this coverage that's not going to ultimately put my parents in a financial crisis because, they need that support. And so it's really important, when I follow up on policies and I'm always looking into, what's happening. And I never used to until I was older because I didn't really understand that some of that could be jeopardized by like changes in the law and changes to, leadership, all of that. It really is scary to think about how fragile those different topics can be for families. And so that's why, we just are, if you always hear like the fight for Medicaid coverage or anything like that, I mean, that's what supports his ability to get diapers, right?
Yes.
His diapers and like, what else do they send us through Medicaid?
The wipes and the gloves and just really anything sanitary, incontinence supplies, creams and even his prescription drugs that he's on. Some of them can be pretty expensive, and we would be paying a lot out of pocket for some of his prescription drugs, and Medicaid will cover all those expenses. So
Wow.
yeah, it does. It's a huge help.
Yeah.
It really is a huge help. Yeah.
All right. So the next topic, like the next area related to, those really crucial transition items to adulthood is talking about employment versus education. And when I say that, I mean from the point when they turn 18 into adulthood to then are they going to start like a job? Are they going to, be embedded in like a vocational program? Or are they going to continue on in a like a post-secondary school program, right?
Right. You say that so well, Jenna. So proud of you.
Well, I do work in a school.
She's so good.
Hey, no, you know a lot more about the other pieces of medical stuff, but yeah, so in Michigan, we are very lucky. I think we have one of the best education programs in my opinion, because we have the ability to have our adults that have disabilities in a post-secondary program to continue working on whether that's activities of daily living, and continuing to enhance certain educational aspects of their life until the age of 26. And, because they recognize that not every child with a disability is able to jump right into a work position. Like with Dominic, he wouldn't, at this time fit into that realm of working out in the community. He would, probably need like a one-on-one, and it just wouldn't be functional for him.
Right.
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 So he is in the post-secondary option where he is going to continue to go to school until 26, and he will graduate with his certificate of completion.
Right.
So he's not on the diploma track. And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand is, and this is a hot topic actually, like in our school, like when we talk about our students, because sometimes parents get really stuck on they have to have a diploma. We want them to get the diploma route from high school, but what they don't realize is that when that child gets a diploma, then they're not eligible for those post-secondary options. So you really have to think about what's best for the student or your child, because is it the best option for them to get the diploma and not receive those post-secondary services until they're 26? Or is it better to keep them in the certificate route to then allow them to stay in a program until they're 26? So that's like the big difference between diploma route and certificate route.
Yes, and I think these concerns really should be coming up, maybe ninth grade, high school, ninth grade, of what route your child will be, you're going to be, what avenue you're going to be going towards, the diploma or certificate of completion. I mean, again, I think this conversation should really start no later than maybe ninth grade.
Well, and I think earlier, like and in our district.
In your high school
Well,
age.
things have changed. It's crazy because I didn't know this, but maybe because I'm in the school world. Actually, if you want a student to follow a diploma route, how there's like state testing, like it used to be the MEP.
Oh,
The MEP
right.
testing. Well, if you want a child to be on the diploma route, they have to be taking the standard assessment, the state test that all the other kids are taking. So if the student is in middle school, for example, taking like an alternative assessment, then at that point, it's looking like they're on the certificate route. And so that transition conversation of like what state assessment they're going to take really starts. Honestly, we've had conversations in 5th grade, which is crazy.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And maybe things are different now. Like,
Yeah.
I think the state has regulated things a little differently. But I think what my mom, she's saying is like in 9th grade, you really are taking the steps to plan what that looks like. Right.
Yeah, that's just based on what we did. But like I said, this was,
yeah,
we're going back a little bit.
Everything changes. And my
Yes.
district that I work in is probably different than the district that he was in. So, so I think it's great when the students can look into post-secondary options. I think, for Dom, do we want to talk about what his path looks like?
I mean, like I said, right in the school that he's in, they really focus a lot on the activities of daily living. to make him to his fullest potential of independency, whether that be in toileting or feeding or laundry, self-care, um, you know, loading a dishwasher, making a bed, setting a table, just,
putting on deodorant.
Yeah, putting on deodorant.
Yeah, brushing his teeth, like self-help.
Yeah, self-care. Yeah, so that's what really they focus primarily on in his school, and it's just been really the jobs and responsibilities that they give him, to get that, independence is it's just so phenomenal to see and to witness, and for them to write home about. I think it's just incredible to hear the things that Dominic is really capable of doing, that they have taught him in this school, in this program. He recycles, all the recyclables in the school. He delivers mail. He has to pick up all the lunch boxes and he delivers them to the lunchroom. And, it might be his job at the end of the day to stack all the chairs on the table or shut the lights off. I mean, he just has these certain jobs and responsibilities that are taught for them. So when he's outside of the school, that, you in hopes that he'll continue those skills at home. We try to have him set the table or, vacuum
right?
And dust, or, throw clothes in the laundry machine, washing machine, and, folding clothes. And it's not going to be perfect, but it just gives him that, that self-worth that he's capable of doing, these things and they're taught to them. And yeah. I screwed that up, but
well, anyways, the next thing that we want to talk about is, this is a tough topic. I know I talked about it on my independent episode of independent living and how, the future, so there's like the starting point of when they turn 18, all those things we just talked about that are really crucial, but the conversation doesn't stop there. It needs to go into, the conversation of, which can be kind of sad to think about, but the will and trust, what is stated in there for his care when my parents aren't able to provide that care for him. You had to update with your lawyers all of that information, thinking about what his future looks like. Where is he going to be taken care of? Who's going to take care of him? What will that look like? Will he be in home and receiving in-home services through a caregiver, or will he be in like an independent living situation? And that, I know, is she just smiles.
It's really hard for me to talk about,
Mom. But this is a conversation that needs, not right now. We're not going to put my mom on the spot right now, but see, what I was talking about in my last episode, it's really hard for her to talk about. And for me as a sibling, I think that I worry, because it's not a talked about thing in our family, that I want to make sure, like, God forbid something happens, that I understand what our path is. And I think we've talked about it, but there's just so many things that can contribute to the worries and the fears, and so we're just not quite there yet. I guess with the
we have things stated in our will and trust of our wishes.
But have we talked about this?
Well, it is a really sensitive subject, and it is really hard for me to talk about, and it's really hard for me to think about, actually. I know what I want, but if I'm not here, I'm not going to have any power. I stated what I stated in the will and what my wishes are, but I don't know. It's just a tough subject. And it will always be, because the thing of it is, see, I'm not going anywhere. See, I'm gonna live forever, and so is my husband. So there's nothing to worry about.
Oh my God, that's a terrible mindset. Let me just say.
No, I know, but
from you, like when you went to Vegas, she's like, "Let's go through this binder together, just in case something happens. Like, here's all of our bank documents." I'm like, "Mom."
No, I know it's not something to laugh about, and it is a really tough subject for me. Always has been, because I can't think about. sometimes I have to take things day by day. And when I look too far into the future and I think about, his care and where we're going to be, where he's going to be, it's really a lot. So I just like, you know what? When we're there and we get closer to it, I don't know. It's not the right answer, but
when is like the best, like, I guess, like, for me, I think it would be really beneficial for our family to go to like a therapist or something to talk about these hard conversations, because I think it's, as a sibling, I feel like I need to have clarity, because I have a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety, and it is a big part of my sessions in therapy, is talking about that. And I feel like it's just really important to just make it not an uncomfortable topic, because this is our reality. Like, this is our life. And um yeah, I mean, I respect, though, like, how they feel. And I know it's like a whole different feeling for my parents versus me as a sibling. I think we have totally different emotions about it. And but yeah, so we won't go further into that. But
everybody knows how I feel now.
yeah,
But
no, they already, I mean, I kind of explained that in my one episode by myself.
yeah.
Same
Well,
thing
you
with
know what?
her.
It's because of the person that Dominic is. His inability to communicate a lot of his wants and needs are not fully communicated. And that's what's so scary for me, is because placing him in any kind of home, which I know is probably going to be the plan. I get that. And it is like a real realization for me. And it's a really hard swallow, but it does scare me, because you see these things on TV, you hear what happens, and these adults can't communicate if they're being neglected, if they're being abused. And Dominic is, so, like I said, he's such a easygoing, person that I could see how he could be taken advantage of with not, being neglected, just having him sit there doing absolutely nothing, sitting in a soiled diaper, and we would never know, you know. So I mean, that's what scares me. If he was an adult with special needs that was going to go into some kind of home that can communicate, hey, you know what, I was sitting here all day today and nobody talked to me, and it's just a whole different experience.
Yeah.
I think with Dominic, the reason why it's so scary for me is just because of who he is. Um, but it is a topic. I totally agree with Jenna. You are 100% right. It is something that, as a family, we really need to discuss openly and honestly. Uh, and that time is coming. It's there. I just gotta.
It's coming.
It's just, yeah, I have to prepare myself. It's a tough one. I'm not, as you can see, it's just a very sensitive topic for me, but
Yeah.
it is reality. It is, because obviously I know I'm not going to be here forever. And I can't put that on my daughters. I couldn't expect that on my daughters. I mean, obviously they have, they're going to have their life and their home and their families, and, and I know that, but it's too real for me, and it's just too hard. It's just too hard to talk about.
Yeah. Well, no, I respect that. I
Yeah.
think I like, that's why we don't talk about it very much,
Nope.
because it's just, I want to respect her feelings on that. And yeah, I mean, it's not an easy, I think, for anybody. I mean, I know this is not the same, but like, even when you have like an older, like, parent that you have to put in a nursing home or something, for example, like, that's really hard. Like, thinking about those options. I mean, the same thing goes for them. Like, if they have like dementia or something, are they able to express like what's going on? Are they being abused? Are they being taken care of? And I think my perspective is that, maybe I'm like naive, but I feel that the world is much more um like caring about this community, and it's not just like put them away and they don't deserve respect and care. I feel like there are options out there that would offer that really great, tender, loving care, with obviously like having to monitor the situation and using your instincts to know, like, I mean, you're so observant, like, with
Yes.
things happening at school, like, oh, he's doing this. That's not normal. What's happening at school? Oh, he's
Remember,
doing this.
behavior is communication.
Yeah. So I think that transitions into adulthood as well. If we feel like something's happening, we'll be able to observe the situation. I think our instincts we always have to go with our gut, is what I've learned a lot in therapy, and trusting your gut to know, oh, yep, something's not going right. But,
Yes, I talk about that all the time.
yeah.
When you know something's not right, you
But
speak up.
this got me thinking. We didn't talk about really quick what happens when he's 26. Remember the school
Oh,
was
yes.
talking to us like he's going to be on a wait list to
Yes.
go to a respite care. Like, what is that?
Yeah, no, it's all like an adult day program. It works a little differently than a school program would, but it's just like an adult daycare, where they try to make it the environment close to a school environment, but they do more things in the community.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, things like that. They'll have projects, and they set up the rooms, according to their level of care or of level of independence. But from what I hear, I haven't toured it yet, but I hear that there's just a lot of more community outings into the public, things like that. And it's just a program that runs, you can run it. You can send them 7 days a week. You can send, maybe not 7 days a week, 5 days a week, 3 days a week, 1 day a week, whatever you like. And it follows a different calendar. There's not like a spring break and a Christmas break and a winter break. I mean, they run, all the time, and you have the control of how often you want to send them. I don't think it's as rigid as like a school program with attendance and things like that. But at least it's an option to, get your sons or daughters somewhere during the day if it runs from 9 to 3, and just get some, keeps them active, keeps them busy. I think that's great. So I think that's great that they offer that. So Dominic is on a waiting list to join a facility like that would, run,
And that goes until,
until,
and
I mean, there's 40-year-olds in there. I mean, as long as you want them to stay there, I guess. I mean, that's from what I hear. It's just from 26 on is how the program runs. Yeah. So, and then they don't run, like, he wouldn't ride a school bus. He would, if he wants transportation, either we would provide it, or there would be like a van that would come and pick him up, things like that. So it's a little different, and like I said, not as rigid, not as, not like a school, but they try to match it as close as they can to keep that consistency of what they know and what works for them.
I like that.
So
I think that offers, that's great.
Yeah. And there's just one thing I wanted to say, going back to, then we can move on, but into the independent living, is that, my husband and I, our wish is that we want to keep Dominic home with us as long as we can, as long as we are able to care for him. That's what our wish is. So that's why it's very important for my husband and I to take care of ourselves, to keep ourselves healthy and fit and, well, because, I wouldn't, until I cannot, or my husband cannot physically and mentally care for him. I mean, until we get to that point, I mean, he's going to stay here with us. I mean, there's just no doubt. So I just have to, do everything I can in my power to keep myself healthy, and to, have my husband healthy as well, and care for Dominic as long as we can. So I wanted to say that too. I have no desire to put Dominic in a home, when John retires. I mean, no, that's just not going to happen. It's like, no, he's going to stay with us until we can physically or mentally no longer care for him. So I think that's important to say that too, that, he's going to be with us until he can't.
I know. Well, I worry about that with my parents, because it's a lot. It takes a big toll on your body.
Yeah.
And
that's why we're going to ride our bikes. We're going to go to the gym.
All right.
Going to do our workouts. Yep. We're going to eat right.
Okay.
That's why it's all important, because I'm telling you, self-care and self-discipline and keeping yourself in good fitness and, eating right, I think that you will live longer. And,
Gab would be really proud.
I know. Gabrielle, did you hear me? And Elvin.
And Elvin, yeah, my sister and brother-in-law. The fit.
No, I'm telling you, it just makes up who you are. But
anyways, I think that we both have different perspectives on things, and that's okay.
I think we made that clear.
Yeah, I think it's okay though. I think it goes to show
I love you.
It just goes to show I think I'm coming in it with different lens of I'm being protective of every person in the, my mom is just a giver. She wants to, I think, wear down her body to the last bone to provide this support and care, where I, as the other end of it, am like, okay, but that's a lot on your body, but she's like, well, I got to do it. This is just my, God's the plan. And I think I come in with a more yeah, but your life and your needs. And yeah, so I come in pulling with both. And I think my mom is focused just on taking care of Dominic. And that just goes to show the kind of person she is. So, I'm looking at our time, and I think that we covered a lot. We didn't cover everything that is kind of the checklist of things to do into adulthood, but I think the things we did talk about are really important, and hopefully start a conversation in your family to talk a little bit more about what it looks like into adulthood. And do you have any wrapping thoughts, Mom?
Well, I just wanted to say, going back to World Down Syndrome Day, which was Friday, March 21st, I was so happy and so pleased with the amount of awareness I think that is out there now for Down syndrome. I mean, there was 2 programs on TV that had a segment on World Down Syndrome Day, and I caught both of them. I can say them, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the Kelly Clarkson Show, big shout out to the Kelly Clarkson Show. Oh my gosh. They had a segment on, World Down Syndrome Day, and they had parents on there explaining their experience with the diagnosis of Down syndrome. And then on Fox News, they had a segment, with Down syndrome. And it was just, I'm thinking, wow, the word is really getting out there that, the praise and the hope, and not to be so afraid when you get that diagnosis. Like I said, I was so pleased that, it's just really coming along, and that just put peace in my heart and, love in my soul. It really did, because that really means a lot to me.
Well, and the connections, every story that the people we heard, it was so similar to yours.
Oh my gosh, unbelievable. The experience was just the way they described it, when Dominic was born, in that room, and the huddle, and the secrets, and the bad news, and it just amazes, wow. This is the way they give you this diagnosis, and it was so negative. And that's what this awareness is about, is that it's not to be afraid of. Mm-hmm. It's not to have a negative. You start with hope, and, and joy and excitement and love, because it's what it is. It's your baby, it's your child, and you will love them, and they'll just make your life so much more of a fun and loving and joyful place. And they truly are blessings. So I was so happy to see both of those segments on TV. I was just, yeah. I taped them both.
It was great. I agree. I feel like it's just more talked about and shared, and there's more joy around it.
Yes.
Which is what the goal is. So, all right, you guys. Well, thank you so much for watching and listening to our episode 9 podcast of NeuroDomvergent. As always, I will share any resources that we talked about underneath the video or in the Spotify description. So please check those out if you're interested in more. And if you guys have any questions, or, just want to reach out, you can follow my Instagram at Jen the SLP. And I always check my direct messages if you guys have anything to share or connect with. So thank you guys so much, and we'll see you.
Thanks for listening.
Soon.
Bye.